It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show. Powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and over 35 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful lady who is a pop culture journalist, and she's also a co-host of Pop Literacy. You can find that all over the internet. And she also wrote a book about the Brady Bunch. I nearly tried to sing the song, but unfortunately, I am not up to singing right now. And last time I sang, I actually got fired by my fans and my producer as well, too. So I'm not going to sing the song. And if you hear the story of a lovely lady, I'm sure it brings back some great memories. So live, ladies and gentlemen, from New York City, the author of the Brady Bunch, The Way We All Became, ladies and gentlemen, from the Brady household, Kimberly Potts. Kimberly, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here talking with you. And I wish I was in the Brady Bunch house right now, actually. I think it's probably still 1971 in the Brady Bunch house, and the coronavirus is something that no one's ever heard of.
You know something, too, and if you had to get somewhere, like, say, went to a beach, a park, or anywhere like that, you can still hop in that wood panel station wagon and stuff everybody in there. Alice can come with, and so can the family dog.
Exactly. We'll bring Tiger. It'll be a good day.
Oh, yes, it would be. And they'd be singing along. And, Greg will be doing this, and Marcia, and, of course, little Cindy, my curls. And of course, the mom will be like, come on, knock it off. And the dad's like, yeah, you heard. That's right. Well, of course, we'll be talking about it as well, too. And not only you wrote about the Brady Bunch, you also wrote for Entertainment Weekly, Hollywood Reporter, TV Guide, Esquire, and more. You're the co-host of the Pop Literacy Podcast and the Authoring Podcast and more. And before we get to all of that, tell us how I got started being a pop culture journalist.
You know, I was obsessed with everything pop culture growing up. I loved sports and watching sports on TV and collecting baseball cards and all those things. I loved TV and reading magazines, anything I could get my hands on, music. I was just obsessed with all those things, all of those pop culture things. It's what we would talk about. I grew up on a farm and lived like an hour away from school, so I had a very long bus ride to school every morning, and that's what we would all talk about, what we had watched on TV the night before. And I also just I found that I loved reading nonfiction, any kind of biography, any celebrity biography I could get my hands on growing up. And so eventually it just seemed like a really good idea for me to become a writer of nonfiction, a journalist. And wow, I was even more excited when I actually learned I could make a living writing about pop culture and all those TV shows I had grown up loving. And so it seemed like the perfect career.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it, too. And you also talked about books and your love of books and everything. And what were your favorite books growing up?
I loved pretty much any Judy Blume book, any kind of, there was a series called Sweet Valley High, and I loved all those books. But it was mostly just anything that I was allowed to check out of the library. because, when you're a kid, they'll only let you check out certain books, and the older you get, the more options you have. But I loved biographies about politicians, about, just historical figures, any celebrity, even if it was a celebrity I had never heard of, or if it was a celebrity from the 50s or 60s who I didn't know any of their work. I just loved reading. I loved reading anything about Hollywood. So I loved reading the newspaper. I loved any magazine I could get my hands on. I just really loved true stories, anything true more than fiction. Completely a believer that truth is stranger and more interesting than pretty much anything that anybody can make up. So that's how I kind of got hooked on reading and books and journalism and everything combined.
And who are your favorite celebrities growing up at the time as well, too?
Oh, that's tough. Well, I was I grew up in Ohio mostly, but I was born and raised for the first few years until I was like 7 or 8 in Missouri. So I was a big fan of the Kansas City Royals, and George Brett was my all-time favorite baseball player and athlete, and so definitely a big hero of mine my whole life. When I loved... gosh, I'm going to date myself here, but the Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, Dallas, I remember that, yes.
Yeah, those were all the shows I watched growing up when I was kind of first really became a huge TV fan. Family Ties, all of those things from the early and mid-'80s. We're huge fans, so I love Michael J. Fox, has always been a favorite of mine. Weird Al Yankovic is another favorite. I have kind of varied tastes. I'm a big Elvis fan. I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandma was a big Elvis fan. So, unfortunately, he had passed away before I became a fan. But there certainly has never been a lack of Elvis music or movies or books material out there. So that was okay. I've been able to learn a lot about Elvis. So yeah, and then I have a whole range now. I mean, I cover TV a lot, so that's definitely my favorite area of pop culture other than books. I love Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Those are probably my two favorite, more recent shows. But yeah, everything. I mean, I think we're all kind of finding in this time that we all love a lot of things from our childhood. They seem especially comforting right now. A lot of people I talk to are watching old shows that they grew up with more so than newer recent shows, just because we're all kind of looking for that comforting thing right now.
And I think that's very true as well, too. And what were some of your favorite TV shows growing up, since we're on that subject?
My favorite TV shows, probably
besides the Brady Bunch. That's a given.
Well, of course, the Brady Bunch. Although I watched it, it was before my time a little bit, so I watched it in the syndication years. But the same 5 seasons, so it's not like I missed out on some of them. We've all had the chance to see those throughout the last 50 years. So definitely the Brady Bunch. Family Ties was my favorite, probably all time. Happy Days, loved the Fonz. Who didn't?
Hey.
So a lot of comedies, and then I think I started liking drama more as I got older, but the 80s was such a great time for family-friendly comedies. The Bradys came back with a spinoff or two during those times too, so it's not like they were out of the mix at that point either.
And also, you talk about sports as well too. Your love for George Brett, and also one of the classic TV shows. I don't know if you remember watching Fantasy Island or how often you watch it. George Brett was in an episode I remember where I guess a pitcher, he always wanted to pitch, and George Brett was at bat, and it was like a swirling, like a curveball, and it just swung a spiral, and he kept swinging it, and he was frustrated. I don't know if you remember watching that episode, but also he was in that. I don't know if you remember watching Fantasy Island, and also I'm just thinking, like, what were your thoughts on that if you got to watch it, and if you say, boss, they blame. But Tatu, I let you answer the question now. Welcome to Fantasy Island.
I do remember the show. I unfortunately did not see that episode. I've read about it and have tried to find this. There are still a few shows. There aren't many, but there's still a few shows that it's hard to find on streaming or DVD. So I haven't been able to see that, unfortunately. I was just obsessed with a 7-Up commercial that George Brett was in, though. I used to hold my little tape recorder up to the TV and tape record it every time and play it over and over again. And, more recently, he was actually in an episode of Modern Family.
Oh, wow.
A couple of seasons ago. But no, I have yet to see that Fantasy Island episode, and I'm really bummed that I haven't seen that yet, because that was kind of George Brett at his peak too. In the late 70s. So I have to find that someday.
And I think that's on YouTube as well, too. They can also play clips of lost episodes. That's what I've discovered as well, too. And of course, you being a sports fan as well and being in New York, how often do you still follow the Kansas City Royals, or have you leaned towards like the Mets or the Yankees?
I kind of don't follow either anymore. If there's a George Brett story, I'm still all over that. But yeah, I actually was a sports writer in college, and that's what I thought I wanted to do. But then I discovered I could actually, again, make a living covering TV. So that kind of took over. But yeah, I haven't really followed sports as much, although I have been, like everyone else, obsessed the last month or so with the Michael Jordan documentary on ESPN. That's, I think, been the best thing to watch in the last couple of months. And I was going to get access to that, but I haven't had time, and shame on me, I should be doing so, considering I've been a Michael Jordan fan for quite some time. And I still remember the day that he got drafted, that the Bulls went after Sam Bowie. That's where they really wanted, but Portland took him. And when Chicago announced Michael Jordan, it was like golf clap. It's like they got chosen as a bridesmaid instead of being the actual bride. But then when Michael Jordan became a star and Sam Bowie got hurt, Portland was like, how come we didn't get Michael Jordan? I said, guys, you've had Calvin Dave Twarzek all along, so why do you need Jordan? I mean, Jordan could have been a bust in Portland. I guess Chicago learned to live with that decision, though, right?
Yeah. We made some really good choices too, and some bad ones. We talk more off the air as well too. We'll talk about some of your experience. We'll talk about your book as well too. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, and over 35 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here at pop culture journalist Kimberly Potts on the Mike Wagner Show with the book, The Way We All Became the Brady Bunch. And before we talk about that, you also wrote for Entertainment Weekly, Hollywood Reporter, TV Guide, Esquire, and more. And, talk about some of your work with these guys.
Well, I've been really lucky to cover a lot of shows that I really love and cover them repeatedly and get the chance to talk to the cast of the shows. I covered The Walking Dead for the first probably 10 or 11 seasons of the show, or 10 seasons of the show, Breaking Bad, and a lot of comedies. And it's been a good, fun career. I've really had the chance to talk to a lot of people, to really get to know the industry. And, just, again, the best thing is getting paid to do what you love. And I've really had the chance to do that.
Mm-hmm. And this also led to your book called The Way We All Became the Brady Bunch. Tell us about the book. And how'd you first get started with the Brady Bunch?
Well, I loved it. Again, I probably was, it's the late 70s, early 80s when I started watching it in one of its many syndication cycles. Love the show like so many people. I did not have a Brady Bunch childhood, and I think people were often in two camps. You either had that kind of childhood, and so you identified with it and loved it, or you didn't have that kind of childhood and wished you did. I certainly always wanted to have a bunch of brothers and sisters. I thought that would have been a lot of fun to have. So I always loved it. And then a couple of years ago, I was thinking about writing a book, and was thinking about the kind of maybe a TV show that I would want to write about. And I started just doing a little bit of research about the Brady Bunch because the 50th anniversary of the show was coming up. And I just discovered all of these things that I didn't know, that it had only been on for 5 seasons, just how popular it had remained throughout those 50 years. It's been spun off into so many different shows, other comedies, a more dramatic show in the 80s, the variety show that's so infamous, and kind of surreal to watch, fun, but kind of crazy. Just the movies it was such a great movie, the mid-90s, the first one and the second one. It's remained really popular, and I don't think everyone, even people who were fans of the show, of the original series, knew that. And so I thought any show that has remained popular for 50 years really deserves, a history, a book-length history, letting people know what a big part of pop culture and TV history it's been.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, in terms of the show's longevity for 5 seasons originally, and then being syndicated for about 50 years. And, of course, the show owes a huge debt to Lucille Ball for its enduring success. I mean, comparing to Lucille Ball, that's going to be like, comparing yourself as a basketball player to Michael Jordan.
Right, that's so true. Lucy was really the one who started syndication. If not for her, both the Brady Bunch and Star Trek would not have existed have been so popular for 50 years, which they both have been. So yeah, they do owe her a huge debt of gratitude, both of those shows.
Mm-hmm. And of course she's saying, "Oh, Ricky, thank you very much. I love you, Lucy. Now do the dishes for me." And speaking Spanish in anger. and of course, the iconic opening sequence. Everybody knows it by now, and I don't need to sing it. The full story and how was that created? It sounds really interesting.
It was. They had to kind of get the backstory of the show across. We don't know if Carol was divorced or if her husband died, and the network purposely wanted that to be left ambiguous. But we know that Mike Brady's first wife died, and we kind of have to know how this family comes together. But of course they didn't want to have to keep repeating that story every week or even, a few times a season. So Sherwood Schwartz, the creator of the series, came up with the idea of addressing it in the theme song, but then also the opening sequence. And so he utilized some very cutting edge at the time technology. It had only been used specifically at the World's Fair, and then began to pop up in other TV series later as well, but and movies, and now it's been spoofed. The Brady Bunch opening credits have been spoofed, lovingly, of course, so many times that we can all think about. But that really was a cutting edge technology to have all of those individual frames in one scene in one film, and then to have them looking at each other and while that iconic theme song played over the opening credits was really cutting edge, and it remains such an iconic, something that we all think of all the time. Even people who've never seen an episode of the show say that they've seen the opening credits and they know the words to that theme song. And of course, 50 years later, it becomes Zoom. But Alice, you have to turn on your camera. You got to turn it on. It's true. That is something that I've heard people say again and again and again in the last couple of months. They all are having their own Brady Bunch experience with Zoom now. I'll have to try that
with eight of my friends sometime, and we'll talk about the story behind the scenes of all the characters, including like Mike, Carol, Greg, Marcia, Peter, Jan, Bobby, Cindy, Alice, and more. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, and over 35 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here, pop culture journalist and the author of The Way We All Became the Brady Bunch, Kimberly Potts, here on the Mike Wagner Show. And of course, you had a look of behind the scenes of the favorite family of Mike, Carol, Greg, Marcia, Peter, Jan, Bobby, Cindy, and Alice, or best known as Florence Henderson, Robert Reed, Barry Williams, and more. And you can just tell us all about that.
They're all, they have been together probably more than any other, pretty much any other TV show. The Brady kids especially have been a part of each other's lives for more than 50 years now. And, they've had complicated relationships with the show. Sometimes they've loved being a part of it. Sometimes they've hated it. Right after the show ended, it was very tough for them to get cast in other roles because people thought of them as the Brady kids, and they would often call them in to audition for things just because they wanted to say that they had met one of the Brady kids. Mm-hmm. And so that was, a time that they weren't particularly happy with being a part of the Brady cast. But then flash forward to last year, at the time of the 50th anniversary, when HGTV did the remodel of the Brady house, and they were all part of that. And I think they got to see just how much they really mean to fans and how beloved they still are. And I think that, they finally are able to fully appreciate what the show means to people and just how important, again, that it is not to just TV history, but larger pop culture history. It's a huge, huge part of that.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Robert Reed, the dad in the movie as well, too, he kept returning for all the spinoffs and movies, but yet he was rather unhappy with the show, as I was reading some reports about it. And, maybe just a little bit about what the dad was really like in real life.
Well, he was very unhappy with the show. He had been classically trained, Shakespearean trained, and that's really what he thought he should be doing in his acting career. So he wasn't happy about being a part of this, very fluffy TV show. But he let that be known over and over again. He was, however, very close to the kid cast members and his adult cast members, but he cared very much about the kids. He took them on vacations. He bought them movie cameras so that they had something productive to do when they were on set and had downtime. He cared a lot about their futures and that if they were going to remain in the TV or movie industry, that they understood not just acting and being on set, but maybe they did understand a little bit about film, that how to operate a camera and how things work. And he took them on a trip on the QE2 to England and took them to Shakespeare's birthplace and exposed them to some theater in New York on the way to the trip to England. So he cared a lot about them, and when he would express his unhappiness on set, it was saved for the times when the kids had gone home for the day. He was very bitter about it and very angry, and caused a lot of hard feelings with the producers and the writers and everyone else working on set. But again, if you ask the kid cast members, the Brady kids, they have nothing but wonderful things to say about him and the way that he treated them. So he was a pretty complicated guy. It
sounds like it too. And who would you say the probably I guess, the best to work with, and who's probably like, besides Robert Reed, probably like one of the more challenging to work with?
I don't think anybody was really. I think they all pretty much got along other than that. I mean, Florence Henderson was great to work with. Ann B. Davis was just thrilled with her role. I mean, I think if you ask most people, they would probably say she did give the best performance on the show. Definitely the comedic center of the show. And just, she turned in a great performance, just a very talented physical comedian and a great sense of humor. And she was very happy to have a great, steady job. So she certainly had no issues with the show. Florence Henderson was happy to have the steady job that allowed her to really, have her family with her because she had done a lot of Broadway, was doing a lot of musicals, traveled a lot. And the Brady Bunch, she had been reluctant initially to do a TV show because she thought it would preclude her from doing, theater and Broadway and traveling and as a musician. But she came to really appreciate the stability that it put in her life and in her children's lives. And she remained very close to all of the kids for the rest of her life, as did Robert Reed. And they all got along. It was really only Robert Reed who had really any big objections to the series and the storylines. And again, let that be known.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, lastly as well, too, that what are some of the most memorable moments that you found in the show as well?
If I had to pick a favorite episode, and I think it's true for a lot of people, it's definitely one of the things that people most remember about the show. It's the season 4 episode Amateur Night, where the kids are competing as the silver platters to try to win enough money to pay for their parents' anniversary gift. I think we all remember the blue and white striped costumes that they're wearing. So that's probably my all-time favorite. But my nose with Marcia getting her nose broken with the football, and don't play ball in the house. All those
I remember that classic one. Yes,
right. That's a classic. I think we all remember the kids together. Just one of the great things about them was they were all, of course, attractive kids, but Sherwood Schwartz purposefully cast kids who weren't movie stars, who hadn't already spent a lot of time on set, who didn't have stage mothers, who were going to be natural. He cast them without kind of set ideas about the characters. He cast the kids and then sort of formed the characters based on what the actors' personalities were like, their interests in a lot of cases. And I think that really came through and is part of the reason why we loved them so much. We felt like they were real kids. They were, again, very attractive children. They certainly were, TV quality actors, and they looked the part, but there was also always a sense with all of them, and especially when they were together, that they were real kids. They were going through the same things in storylines that real kids were going through, and I think that endeared all of them to us.
Mm-hmm. And of course, what we now have is the modern happy family, thanks to the Brady Bunch 50 years ago.
Absolutely. I think so many shows owe their storylines and their castings and just that idea of the family that solves the problems in 22 minutes plus commercials. We owe all of that to the Brady Bunch.
Mm-hmm. And of course, no ball playing in the house. Remember that.
Remember it.
That's right.
It can only lead to trouble.
That's right. Yeah. Author, pop culture journalist Kimberly Potts on the Mike Wagner Show with The Way We All Became the Brady Bunch. And where can we find this book?
Anywhere you get your books, online at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, local independent booksellers is a great place. It's available on ebook or hardcover. So, check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. And it's a gorgeous cover.
Okay. All right. We'll check that out as well, too. And not only you also wrote The Brady Bunch, you also co-host a pop literacy podcast as well, too. And tell us a little bit about that.
I host it with my friend and fellow author and pop culture writer Jennifer Cation Armstrong. She wrote the book Seinfeldia, which I think most TV fans and books of TV fans know. We just kind of we get together. We're both really busy, so we have a hard time getting together sometimes. And so when we do, we end up having these marathon 3-4 hour lunches, and where we just talk about everything that we haven't had a chance to catch up on. And so we said, hey, we should turn this into a podcast and just kind of talk about all the pop culture stuff because we have a lot of very similar interests. So that was our chance to do that when there's a great book coming out that we want to talk about, that we want to let other people know about, or a great TV show, maybe something that people, not Grey's Anatomy or things that people have already heard about, but maybe things that we've heard about because we're covering it, or because a friend told us about it, or because we know one of the people involved with the show or the movie or whatever. So it's just kind of a big hodgepodge of current and classic pop culture, and just our chance to make sure that people know about something other than what they see in front of them every day.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you talk about all kinds of things, and I noticed you had the Brady Bunch in the podcast as well.
We did. We talked all about the bunch when my book first came out.
That is fantastic. And where can we find your podcast at?
At popliteracy.com.
Literacy.com. Okay, just a few more minutes with author Kimberly Potts on the Mike Wagner Show. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
That is a good question. I would say actually Entertainment Weekly in general. That was, I was still kind of deciding what I wanted to cover, what I wanted to focus on as a journalist when Entertainment Weekly first came out, I think in 1990. And I just remember reading the first few issues and thinking, wow, this is the exact magazine I've been waiting on my whole life. It was just, the way they covered things, the way they wrote about things, both in a fun way, but also very reverently. That really kind of set me on the path to covering entertainment and pop culture.
And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Read more than anything. Write, of course, get better, but you have to read. I'm always surprised when people tell me. I know other journalists, other writers who tell me they actually don't read that much, and I'm always just shocked by that.
Mm-hmm. That's the best advice as well, too. Once again, pop culture journalist Kimberly Potts, author of The Way We All Became the Brady Bunch on the Mike Wagner Show. Kimberly, big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Look forward to having you again soon. And I'm sure Alice is calling you right now, and I understand you still have that wood panel station wagon you borrowed for the last 50 years. She's like, give it back, give it back.
Okay, Alice, I'm returning it now, finally.
All right, sounds good. And once again, tell us about your upcoming projects. What's your website? How do people contact you? And where can people purchase your book?
They can purchase the book at any local or national book chain or online. You can find me at my website, KimberlyPotts.com, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at TV Screener.
That's fantastic. Once again, Kim, a big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Do us a favor, keep this up to date. We'd love you to have back on in 2020 and beyond.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been such a fun pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.